Hundreds of pro-Palestine protesters took over one of Britain's largest shopping centres in London.
Mob of over 890 inside the mall. £2.8 million wiped out in 3 hours. 17 storefronts smashed. In just 40 minutes, supporters of a banned extremist group turned the peak of the Christmas season into a zone of total chaos. This wasn't a holiday crowd, this was a coordinated attack. At 12:40 p.m, the main entrance was breached. Hundreds chanted, "From the river to the sea." They didn't come to plead, they came to dominate. At 12:53, religious chants erupted as parents frantically evacuated their children. By 1:05, the insignia of a proscribed organisation was visible everywhere. Security guards simply buckled under the weight of the mob. The demands were clear. The immediate resignation of Starmer, the reversal of the extremist designation, and the release of 8 so-called freedom fighters from prison. And Starmer's position? "I have no right to release prisoners. I call for peaceful de-escalation." The path of peace without brute force was chosen. The police retreat was justified, in the name of avoiding casualties. In 2 hours, flags calling for religious dominance were spotted. This changed everything. Crowds with English flags demanded the dissolution of Parliament. Starmer stands accused of surrendering the country to outsiders without a single shot fired. 5 vans were deployed. Masked protesters began clashes with police. Nigel Farage accused Starmer of two-tier policing, asking, "Why is one set of protesters granted total impunity while others are massively suppressed?" Religious slogans continued to echo. At 1:20 p.m, the critical moment arrived. The shopping centre was locked down not by tactical units, but by supporters of a banned religious faction. Meanwhile, on the other side of England, 4 boats delivered another 390 illegal arrivals. The public simply snapped. A TikTok clip hit 7.3 million views in just 4 hours.
You've allowed people into our towns and cities that are raping their way through our towns. They're murdering our kids, left, right and centre. Women are being raped daily across every city in our country from the that you've brought in. You've opened our borders. You care more for Afghanis, Somalis, Eritreans, Syrians, Pakistanis. You care more for them. You put them up. You house them. They're a danger to us. They're a danger to our country, and you give more of a fuck them than you do about British children. You're endangering every one of us and our families by housing men you know nothing about across our country, and to top it all off, we're paying for it. You've done this. The government have done this. The police have done this. Your absolute cowardice has resulted in this. Children being and the problem is, no one can believe a word you say, because you continuously lie. Everything's a lie from you. No one trusts you. Get them out of them hotels. Get them gone. Put them on boats and send them back. Okay? They shouldn't be here. Because of your foolish, weak leadership. Stop the fucking boat.
Crowds with British flags asked, how did Starmer allow hundreds to rampage with impunity? There was no answer. They didn't even expect one anymore. Within 4 hours, the so-called far right had seized the streets. Footage leaked on Twitter showed the reality. Clashes erupted in residential courtyards. Petrol bombs were hurled directly at a platoon of officers. The police released a statement claiming, "Two-tier policing is a baseless fabrication of the opposition." The crowd no longer cared. But everything changed in just 53 seconds. Someone unleashed fireworks purchased for the holidays. Dozens of vans came under attack. A squad was encircled by protesters launching pyrotechnics. In response, police retreated behind riot shields. Another 4 vans were deployed. Starmer found himself caught between the hammer and the anvil. Supporters of the banned religious faction branded him a war criminal, claiming the blood of tens of thousands of children in the Middle East stains his hands. The so-called far-right accused him of betraying Britain and enforcing two-tier policing. This is exactly what happens when you try to sit on 2 chairs. When a government surrenders its commercial heartlands to appease radicals, it doesn't secure peace. It guarantees escalation. The agitators who seized the mall utilised freedoms Starmer refuses to defend. The aggressive intimidation that silenced shoppers flourished under regulations Starmer refuses to apply. For weeks, retail security heads have privately issued the same alert. There's a high risk of provocations during the Christmas holidays. deployed dozens of police squads to prevent them. It was factically ignored. These occupations are not accidental. They are engineered. Video evidence from inside the centre exposed the same strategy deploying with military precision. The same coordinated chant leaders, the same scouts blocking escalators, and the same hostile perimeter established to keep security personnel at bay. These are not holiday shoppers. These are organised mobilisations by a prescribed network leveraging the season to hold the economy hostage. And Whitehall is fully aware. They hold the files, they see the financial reports, they hear the demands for deprescription. But under this administration, every one of those facts is buried under the same excuse, too volatile to confront. The capital used to enforce order based on statutes. Now it operates based on anxiety. Anxiety over optics, anxiety over community tension, anxiety over offending groups that openly despise Western traditions. That is how we arrived at this broken standard. A British patriot waving a national flag, kettled, arrested, smeared. A local football fan shouting too loudly, banned for life. But a faction supporting a banned organisation, taking over a mall, total domination of the space, no intervention unless property damage becomes catastrophic. And even then, reluctance. Taxpayers witness this hypocrisy. Shoppers feel this betrayal, and the patience of the silent majority shattered. Because when citizens realise the rules no longer bind the radical few, faith in the system vanishes faster than the holiday revenue. This surrender wasn't an error, it was policy. Multiple sources within the force confirmed the same standing order. Do not engage with the occupation unless physical harm is imminent. Prioritise the flow of the protest over the rights of the business owners. Do not risk sparking a wider riot. This is the mandate of a constabulary that has been politically paralysed. They didn't lack equipment, they lacked authorisation. Authorisation to reclaim the atrium. Authorisation to arrest those supporting prescribed entities. Authorisation to defend the Christmas tradition without dreading a disciplinary hearing. When enforcement agencies are terrified of the groups they are meant to control. When constables step back because their superiors value quiet over justice. A nation stops being led. It starts being managed. The Prime Minister constructed his tenure on one promise. We will maintain stability. As the occupation solidified, security hubs across the complex waited for a single command from Central Dispatch: sanction the clearance. That authorisation never arrived. Rather than intervention, high-ranking strategists issued a diluted protocol, one that frontline constables characterised as surrender masquerading as management. Emphasise containment, permit temporary commercial blockage, avoid friction with politically charged assemblies. Politically charged assemblies, that is the euphemism now utilised to define radicalised blocs who mask their identities, chant sectarian demands, and brazenly commandeer private property. The administration didn't paralyse because it lacked manpower. It stalled because the Prime Minister dreads the optical price of reasserting sovereignty over the mob. Various sources within the judiciary confirmed the identical grievance. Each tactical choice is now screened through the terror of being branded culturally insensitive. It is irrelevant if the gathering is hostile. It is insignificant if families are intimidated, storefronts shuttered, or revenue streams destroyed during the fiscal peak. According to opposition, Downing Street's primary concern is not public order. It is electoral perception. Political consultants have become so fixated on approval ratings from specific demographics that they would sooner permit extremists to colonise a shopping centre than risk a headline labelling them oppressive. The UK stands as the primary nation where enforcement pauses, not because they are outgunned, but because the leadership fears a social media campaign more than a breakdown of law. This holiday anarchy did not materialise from the ether. Security services possessed multiple risk evaluations, flagging coordinated disruption attempts targeting major retail hubs, alerting to radicalised networks organising via encrypted channels, financial trails connecting local agitators to prescribed overseas entities, explicit directives to sabotage the December economy, direct incitement from foreign ideologues, and numerous indicators showing the intention to weaponise the festive period for political blackmail. Each of these warnings was designated for urgent ministerial attention. The Premier acted on none of them. Insiders claim the administration deliberately rejected robust preventative measures because they violated the principle of community engagement. Consequently, British retailers face financial ruin, private security is overrun, and citizens are advised to evacuate their own commercial districts. an administration that dreads conflict ultimately summons anarchy. Under this tenure, two-tier policing solidified, extremist-aligned occupations normalised, officer morale plummeted, and the state became paralysed by its own political correctness. Even as the mall descended into a territory of lawlessness, top bureaucrats were more focused on averting a backlash from radical factions than protecting the livelihoods of the tax-paying majority. While police commanders claimed they lacked the resources to clear the atrium, the Home Office was quietly processing yet another invoice for four-star accommodations. £6 million every single day. That is the current cost being drained from the public purse to house the very demographic now dictating terms on the streets. Every taxpayer watching the occupation unfold understands they are financing their own displacement. Entire coastal towns have been effectively commandeered. Historic hotels are shuttered to the public, requisitioned to warehouse thousands of unvetted fighting-age males who arrived illegally. The government pleads poverty when pensioners lose their winter fuel payments, yet the budget for migrant hospitality remains apparently limitless. It is a transfer of wealth from the law-abiding to the law-breaking on an industrial scale. And with this uncontrolled influx comes a new category of violence that Starmer refuses to address. The machete has effectively replaced the fist as the primary tool of conflict in our urban centres. Emergency wards are overwhelmed with catastrophic slash wounds, previously seen only in active war zones. This is not petty crime. It is the importation of lethal brutality. Nation witnessed teenagers hacking one another down in broad daylight while the judiciary hand-wrings over sentencing guidelines. Nigel Farage says, the police are too preoccupied monitoring social media posts to halt the blade epidemic on the pavement. When a society tolerates the open carry of military-grade weapons, because stopping and searching specific groups is deemed discriminatory, public safety has effectively ceased to exist. This pattern of turning a blind eye is not a new phenomenon. It is the continuation of the darkest chapter in modern British history. We must never forget the grooming gangs. We remember Rotherham, we remember Rochdale. For months, thousands of vulnerable British female were systematically abused, trafficked, and raped by organised ethnic networks. They did not intervene because they were terrified of damaging community relations. They sacrificed the safety of children to protect the myth of multicultural success. Critics say it. The exact same institutional cowardice that allowed those gangs to operate with impunity is what permitted the mall takeover today. Authorities would rather allow a crime to continue than face an accusation of racism from the perpetrators. This betrayal strikes deeper than just the chaos in shopping centres or the anarchy on our streets. While the mob dominated Stratford, millions of British pensioners sat in cold homes terrified to touch their thermostats. Starmer made a cold calculation this winter. He stripped the winter fuel allowance from the frail and the elderly to plug a black hole in the treasury. These are the men and women who rebuilt this nation after the war. They paid their taxes for decades. They played by every rule the state set out for them. And now, in their twilight years, they are told to choose between heating and eating. Yet the very same government that pleads poverty to the pensioner miraculously finds billions to service the illegal arrival. There is no factical cap on the budget for migrant accommodation. Opposition says there is no means testing for the men arriving on small boats. A British grandmother freezes in a damp council flat, while a young man who broke the laws is handed 3 meals a day and a heated room. It is a grotesque inversion of duty. But the insult does not end with the elderly. Look at how this administration treats those who wore the uniform. UK have thousands of homeless veterans sleeping in doorways across this country. Men who serve for Britain, men who suffer from PTSD and carry the physical scars of defending our freedoms. They are left to rot on the pavement. They watch as 4-star hotels are requisitioned not for them, but for unvetted males of fighting age who have never contributed a penny to this realm.